Hi everyone, my name is Emily Marchuk, and today I'm going to present to you my practicum project on the Nurse Navigator program in the Pediatric Intensive Care Unit at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. The problem I identified in the PICU was that turnover is higher in the PICU compared to the hospital as a whole and other units. Leadership is aware of this problem due to resignations and onboarding of new nurses. Just an idea, recently 60 new nurses were hired for the PICU. Here's a chart of the RN turnover rate at CHOP. For CHOP as a whole, the voluntary turnover rate rolling for fiscal year 2020 is 10%. Now, if we look at the PICU, the voluntary rolling turnover rate is about 17% for fiscal year 2020. If we compare other units at the hospital to the PICU, you can see that in December 2019, rheumatology was at 11% for their turnover, oncology was at 15%, adolescent at 14%, complex peds 13%, endocrine 9%, medical subspecialty was actually 0%, and the cardiac care unit was about 7.5%. These numbers are all lower than the PICU's 17%. The research for RN turnover indicates that about 17.5% of new nurses leave their job within the first year. Nationally, about 43.4% of new nurses leave their job within 3 years. One of the many links to turnover does include the work environment. Turnover can be costly for organizations, ranging from $5.9 million to $6.4 million a year for an acute care hospital. For my project, I decided to investigate the PICU Nurse Navigator program and make evidence-based interventions to improve it. So what is the Nurse Navigator program? It's a term that describes the mentor program of the PICU. New nurses, which are called mentees, are matched with more experienced nurses, which are called mentors, and the mentors are to be a support system, a resource, and help the new nurse acclimate to the unit. Mentors and mentees are expected to meet once a month off the unit for the first 6 months after orientation, and this meeting is to last for about 30 minutes. The mentors and mentees are matched by the mentor chair, and the goal of the program is to increase job satisfaction by supporting new nurses, thus decreasing turnover. So in the PICU, many new nurses feel that it's a stressful environment. They look for other jobs, they resign, they look to transfer internally, or they go back to school for an advanced degree. Feedback from stakeholders included that newer nurses aren't participating in the program. There's an email that's sent to the mentee when they're matched with the mentor, and these emails are being ignored. And also mentors are reaching out to the mentee to initiate the relationship, and they're not receiving a response. Research on mentoring programs show that they ease the transition to practice for newer nurses. They also create an environment where newer nurses feel supported, and they reduce turnover and increase job satisfaction. The theoretical framework I chose for my project is Benner's novice to expert theory. And the reason I chose this is because newer nurses are essentially a novice, and the mentor program will help them advance through the novice to expert continuum. My preceptor was the nurse manager of PICU West, and her role in the project was to oversee it, provide me with feedback, answer any of my questions and concerns, and to connect me with other stakeholders. At the beginning of the semester, I did send out a survey to new nurses to gather a little bit more information. I sent it to about 60 nurses and 11 responded. The questions that I asked was to please describe your understanding of the Nurse Navigator program. And 10 out of 11 of these nurses had a solid understanding. My second question was, have you met with your mentor outside of the unit? And 10 out of 11 nurses had not met with their mentor. And my last question is, when you were matched with your mentor, would you have preferred leadership selecting the mentor for you or choosing your own? 5 stated that they would have rather chose their own, and 7 stated they would have rather leadership selected for them. Now you can see with this last question that the math is a little bit off. It equals 12 nurses, not 11. It seems that somebody went into the survey and answered the last question. However, they didn't answer the first 2 questions. I created some evidence-based interventions for the program. My first intervention was a presentation to new hires at an onboarding meeting. And the reason I did this was to provide clear expectations, because that can build stronger mentor and mentee relationships, and also to set the stage for mentees. They know their expectations, they know the program isn't optional and it's mandatory for them to participate. My second intervention was the creation of a Navigator agreement with expectations and goals. And the literature states that this gives direction to the program, a guide to develop goals and expectations, and a means of communication between the mentor and mentee. And also for accountability, both the mentor and mentee have to sign the bottom of the agreement that they both understand their expectations of the program. Next, I created a Navigator log to document monthly meetings, and this is also to create accountability, mainly for the mentee, but also for the mentor, that they are participating in the program. And after that, I created an evaluation survey for both mentors and mentees, so stakeholders can continually evaluate the program and make improvements as necessary. And lastly, the last change I made was new nurses will have the option to pick their mentor, someone in which they had identified a connection. And the reason I did this was because the literature indicates that matches are more likely to be successful when the mentee can pick their mentor. Resources needed for the program. During my semester, I did find out that one of the PICU supervisors will be transitioning to head of the Navigator program. And the reason for this was because the program was not running how it was intended and newer nurses weren't participating. Next, protected time for mentees and mentors to meet with their supervisor for check-ins, and also protected time for monthly mentor and mentee meetings, and protected time for mentor chairs. That segues into our barriers slide. Time has been the biggest barrier for the program for both mentees and mentors. Mentor chairs are both clinical nurses and they lack the time and resources to run the program because they are in patient care. There are many benefits to a mentor program. The changes I made should show decreased turnover and increased retention. High quality mentor programs have been linked to nurse retention in the literature, so it's important that these changes are being made. Other benefits for mentees include increased self-confidence, decreased stress, cultural acclimation to the unit, professional growth opportunities, enhanced leadership skills, improved networking, legal and ethical insight, and political savviness. Challenges of my interventions. The survey response rate was low. I sent to roughly 60 nurses and only 11 responded. I was only able to implement the survey and one presentation to new hires due to the current pandemic. I also was not able to implement the agreement, log, and evaluation surveys that I created due to the current pandemic. And the interaction with multiple stakeholders was a challenge as well. Evaluating my interventions, the data from the evaluation surveys should show the stakeholders if the program is running better than before, if nurses are satisfied, what changes need to be made to improve the program. The annual nursing indicator surveys. This will evaluate if nurses are more satisfied with their work environment than they were the previous year. The hospital's turnover rate data, did that 17% decrease? And simply qualitative data from the stakeholders. Are newer nurses participating more? Do newer nurses feel more supported? And are we receiving positive feedback for the program? In conclusion, these evidence-based interventions should assist the Navigator program in increasing participation. This should show positive results such as decreased turnover and higher job satisfaction. This is a win-win for the organization. This will help the organization save time and money and resources and promote the success of the newer nurse. Here are my references. Thank you for watching.